Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're trying something a little different. We're diving into some research that you sent our way about taxes and asset shifting.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and we're looking at Dave McKnight's book, The Power of Zero. It came out back in 2014,
Okay.
but we're focusing on what's relevant now, especially with all the tax law changes since 2018.
Right.
It's kind of like there's a limited time tax sale happening, and
Interesting.
we want to help you figure out how to make the most of it. Even back in 2014,
Yeah.
where Knight was talking about how this huge national debt could lead to higher taxes later on.
Yeah, it's interesting. He pointed out that people were hesitant to pay taxes now because they were hoping that rates would be lower by the time they retired.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Hoping for lower taxes in the future. But then, like you said, things changed in 2018 with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act.
Right.
Didn't that kind of turn everything upside down?
Absolutely. It created an 8-year window starting January 1, 2018, with some of the lowest tax rates we've seen in a long time. It really is a unique opportunity.
Wow.
But there's a catch. It's not permanent. On January 1, 2026, these rates are set to expire and could potentially go even higher than they were before.
So we've got this ticking clock.
Yes.
Knowing that taxes are likely to go up in the future, it seems like understanding how to navigate this 8-year window is super important.
I agree.
But before we get into strategies, I think we need to break down some of these concepts like asset shifting. What exactly does that mean?
Right. Let's clarify that. In simple terms, asset shifting is moving your money from accounts where you pay taxes later to accounts where you pay taxes now, or even better, not at all. It's about strategically managing your assets to potentially minimize your overall tax burden.
Okay. So it's about being smart about where your money is and when you pay taxes on it. And you mentioned accounts where you pay taxes later versus now.
Yes.
Can you give us some examples of those different types of accounts?
Sure. A common example of an account where you pay taxes later is a traditional 401k or IRA. You contribute pre-tax dollars, which lowers your taxable income now,
Okay.
but then you pay taxes when you withdraw that money in retirement.
Gotcha.
On the other hand, a Roth IRA is an example of an account where you pay taxes up front. You contribute after-tax dollars, but then your money grows tax-free and you don't owe any taxes when you withdraw it in retirement.
So with asset shifting, you'd be moving money from an account like a traditional 401k to a Roth IRA, essentially paying those taxes now while the rates are lower,
That's right.
with the goal of avoiding potentially higher taxes down the road.
Exactly. And to understand how this all works, it can be helpful to visualize it. Imagine a graduated cylinder, like the ones you might remember from chemistry class.
Oh, yeah, I remember those. They had all those markings up the side to measure different volumes.
Precisely. Think of your taxable income as liquid flowing into this cylinder. As it fills up, different levels get taxed at different rates. These levels represent the tax brackets.
Okay, so the more income you have, the higher up the cylinder it goes, and the more likely you are to hit those higher tax brackets.
Exactly. Now, in the past, asset shifting often meant landing in a 25% or 28% tax bracket,
Okay.
which made it less appealing for some people. But the 2018 tax law changes created a new 24% bracket that goes all the way up to $315,000 of taxable income for those who are married filing jointly.
That seems like a pretty big deal.
It is.
So under the old system, someone shifting a significant amount of assets could easily end up in that 25% or 28% bracket. But now they might fall into this lower 24% bracket.
Yeah.
Is that what makes this tax sale so special?
That's a big part of it. This new 24% bracket has created a sweet spot for asset shifting. Let me explain why. Imagine you and your spouse have $300,000 of taxable income.
Okay.
In 2017, that would have put you well into the 33% tax bracket. But under the current law, you'd still be comfortably within that 24% bracket.
Wow.
This means you could potentially shift a significant chunk of your assets and pay a lower tax rate than you would have just a few years ago.
That's a pretty compelling reason to pay attention to this. It's like having a sale on your future tax bill. But it sounds like figuring out how much to shift without bumping yourself into a higher bracket is going to be crucial.
Absolutely. And that's something we'll dive into more deeply in the next part of our deep dive.
So we've got this opportunity to shift assets and potentially save on taxes in the long run. But it feels like there's this pressure to act fast because of this 2026 deadline. Is that something people should really be concerned about?
It's definitely something to think about. These tax cuts we talked about, the ones creating this tax sale, they weren't exactly a free lunch. McKnight actually uses this interesting phrase to describe it.
Yeah.
He calls it dessert before spinach.
Dessert before spinach. That's a new one. What does he mean by that?
Well, think about it this way. The government, by offering these lower tax rates, essentially gave everyone a tasty dessert first. It stimulated the economy,
Right.
but it came at a cost. It added significantly to the national debt.
Aha, so we're enjoying the sweet taste of low taxes now.
Right.
But we might have to face the less appealing consequences later on.
Exactly. And those consequences could include higher taxes down the road, even higher than they were before the tax cuts. It's like we're kicking the can down the road,
Right.
and eventually someone's going to have to deal with it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Ah,
So this 8-year window isn't just about saving money now. It's about strategically positioning ourselves for a future where taxes could be significantly higher.
that's a good way to put it. And that's where this idea of a magic number comes in.
Right, we touched on that earlier.
Yeah.
It's about figuring out how much to shift each year to maximize the benefits of those lower tax rates without pushing yourself into a higher bracket.
Exactly.
But how do you actually determine that number? It seems pretty complicated.
It can be. There's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Yeah.
Your magic number depends on your income, your assets, your retirement goals, and a bunch of other factors.
Yeah.
That's why McKnight emphasizes the importance of working with a financial advisor who specializes in tax-free planning.
So it's not something you should just try to figure out on your own.
Right.
You need an expert to help you navigate all the complexities. But what kind of things should you be looking for in a financial advisor? What questions should you be asking?
That's a great question. First and foremost, you want someone who's experienced and knowledgeable in this specific area of tax planning.
Okay.
They should be able to analyze your individual situation and explain your options clearly
Right.
and help you develop a customized strategy.
So someone who understands the nuances of this tax sale and can help you make the most of it. What else should you consider?
You also want to make sure they are a fiduciary, which means they're legally obligated to act in your best interest.
Right.
And of course, you want someone you feel comfortable with, someone you can trust to guide you through these important financial decisions.
It sounds like finding the right financial advisor is crucial to making this whole asset shifting thing work.
It is.
But once you found that person, what are some of the strategies they might recommend? What are the actual mechanics of moving those assets from tax-deferred to tax-free?
Well, there are a few key strategies McKnight outlines in his book. One of the most common is Roth conversions, which we talked about briefly earlier.
Right. That's where you take money from a traditional IRA or 401k and move it into a Roth IRA.
Yeah.
But doesn't that trigger a tax bill right away?
Yes, it does. But remember, the goal here is to pay those taxes now while the rates are lower,
Okay.
rather than waiting and potentially facing much higher rates down the road. By converting a portion of your assets each year, you can spread out the tax burden over time and strategically use that 24% bracket to your advantage.
So you're basically controlling how much taxable income you recognize each year to minimize the overall tax hit.
Precisely. And as you make those Roth conversions, that money grows tax-free. And when you withdraw it in retirement, it's completely tax-free.
That's a pretty sweet deal,
Yeah.
especially if you anticipate being in a higher tax bracket later on.
Absolutely. But Roth conversions aren't the only tool in the toolbox. McKnight also discusses other strategies like leveraging cash value life insurance.
Life insurance. That's not something I usually think of when it comes to asset shifting. How does that work?
Well, certain types of life insurance policies, specifically cash value life insurance, allow you to accumulate cash value on a tax-deferred basis. Think of it like a savings account within your life insurance policy. This cash value can then be accessed tax-free through policy loans or withdrawals.
So it's like having a secret stash of tax-free money tucked away inside your life insurance policy.
In a way, yes. And this can be a powerful strategy for high-income earners who've already maxed out their contributions to tax-advantaged retirement accounts like 401ks and IRAs.
Interesting. So it sounds like Roth conversions and cash value life insurance are two key strategies for asset shifting. But are there other factors to consider when choosing the right approach?
Absolutely. One important factor is your investment timeline. If you're younger and have a longer time horizon before retirement, you might be more comfortable with a more aggressive approach, maximizing those Roth conversions while rates are low. But if you're closer to retirement, a more gradual strategy might make more sense. It really depends on your individual circumstances and risk tolerance.
So it's not just about choosing a strategy, it's about tailoring that strategy to your specific needs and goals.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to have a qualified financial advisor on your team, someone who can help you assess your situation, weigh the pros and cons of different options, and create a plan that's right for you.
It sounds like we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the urgency of this tax sale, the importance of finding that magic number, and the mechanics of asset shifting with strategies like Roth conversions and cash value life insurance. Is there anything else we should keep in mind as we move forward?
So we've got this incredible opportunity with this tax sale, but it also feels kind of overwhelming. There's a lot to consider, and it's hard to even know where to begin. I understand. It can definitely feel like a lot. But remember, McKnight's book, The Power of Zero, goes into a lot more detail on all this stuff. He looks at different strategies, potential pitfalls, even gives you real-life examples to show how these concepts work in practice.
So the book is a good resource for anyone who really wants to dive deep into this. But for someone listening to this deep dive who's just now starting to understand asset shifting, what's the most important thing to remember? Like, what should they do right now?
I think the most important thing is to just do something. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Start by educating yourself. Read McKnight's book, do some research online, talk to a financial advisor who specializes in tax-free planning.
So knowledge is power. The more you understand about asset shifting and the potential benefits, the better you'll be able to make good decisions.
Exactly. And keep in mind, this isn't about trying to avoid paying taxes altogether. It's about being smart and using the current tax laws to your advantage to maybe lower your tax burden over time.
It's like we're playing chess with the IRS and we need to plan out our moves.
That's a great way to put it. And just like in chess, having a good advisor on your side can make a big difference. They can help you see the whole picture, anticipate challenges, and come up with a winning game plan.
I like that. So we have this unique window of opportunity with these lower tax rates. We have tools like Roth conversions and cash value, life insurance, and we have resources like McKnight's book and financial advisors to help us. It seems like we've got everything we need to create a better financial future.
That's a great way to sum it up. It's not every day we get the chance to potentially save a lot of money on taxes, so we need to grab this opportunity while it's here.
Totally. And just to say again, this deep dive is really just the beginning. We've only scratched the surface. It's up to each person to take the next step, do their own research, and figure out what works best for them.
I agree. And I'll leave you with one last thought. Remember McKnight's dessert before spinach analogy. If these tax cuts are the dessert, it makes you wonder what kind of spinach we might be looking at after 2026. Doesn't that make this 8-year window even more important to take advantage of?
That's a great point. It definitely gives us all something to think about as we make these financial decisions. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's giving you some ideas about asset shifting and how you can take control of your financial future.
Until next time, keep learning, keep asking questions, and remember, knowledge is the key to unlocking your financial freedom.